The atmosphere in the View studio that morning was tense, almost electric, though no one could quite put their finger on why. The bright lights gleamed off the polished studio floor, the audience buzzed with anticipation, and the hosts shuffled their notes as they prepared for what was supposed to be a light-hearted interview. Adam Sandler, one of Hollywood's most beloved comedians, had arrived to promote his new film, a heartfelt drama that critics were already calling the best work of his career. Known for his goofy humor, kind heart, and unmistakable voice, Sandler was a guest audiences loved to see. What should have been an easy, friendly conversation, however, was about to become something else entirely, something raw, uncomfortable, and unforgettable. Sandler entered the set with his familiar easy grin, the same grin that had lit up dozens of films over the years. He exchanged friendly greetings with Whoopi Goldberg and Sarah Haynes before settling into his seat across from Joy Behar. He adjusted his jacket, leaned back slightly, and waited for the conversation to begin. The audience applauded warmly. The camera light turned red, and the interview began. "Adam, welcome back to The View," Whoopi said cheerfully. "Always good to have you here." "Thanks, Whoopi. Always nice to be here," Sandler replied, his tone genuine and relaxed. But before the pleasantries could settle, Joy Behar leaned forward, her expression sharp. There was something different in her voice when she spoke, a note of challenge rather than curiosity. "So, Adam," she began, her words deliberate and slightly cutting, "I have to ask about this sudden pivot to serious acting. Are you finally admitting that your comedy career has run its course?" The audience shifted. The laughter died down and an uneasy silence rippled through the studio. The question hung in the air like a blade shimmering with provocation. Even the camera operators seemed to hesitate for a moment, unsure whether to zoom in or hold wide. Sandler's smile faltered just for a second, but he quickly recovered with the professionalism of a man who'd dealt with awkward interviews before. "Well, Joy," he said, still smiling, though his eyes had narrowed slightly, "I wouldn't say it's sudden. I've been doing dramatic work for a long time now. Punch-drunk love, uncut gems, Spanglish. I've always loved exploring different sides of storytelling." Joy wasn't having it. "But let's be honest," she interrupted, leaning forward again. Her tone was sharper now, her expression almost predatory. "Your last few comedies were absolutely panned by critics. Jack and Jill, The Ridiculous Six, Hubie Halloween. I mean, come on, Adam. Those weren't exactly Oscar contenders. Are you just trying to salvage what's left of your reputation?" A few uncomfortable laughs came from the audience, unsure whether to side with Joy's bluntness or Sandler's calm dignity. Whoopi shot Joy a warning look, silently urging her to back off, but Joy pressed on, emboldened by the attention. Sandler's jaw tightened slightly, but his tone remained even. "I think my fans would disagree with that assessment," he replied carefully. "My movies connect with people, and that's what matters most to me. Not everyone has to like everything I do." "Connect with people?" Joy scoffed loudly, her voice rising enough to echo through the studio. "You mean connect with 12-year-old boys who think fart jokes are the height of comedy? When was the last time you made something actually intelligent, Adam?" The audience murmured uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual playful ribbing viewers expected from the show. This was personal. There was venom in her words, and the tension on set was thick enough to cut. Sandler blinked, then slowly exhaled. "Joy," he said evenly, "I'm not sure why you're being so hostile here. I came on your show to talk about my new film, a movie that's actually about family, loss, and redemption. I thought maybe we could have a meaningful conversation about that." "Oh, we can have a conversation," Joy shot back, eyes glinting. "But let's have an honest one. Your so-called dramatic performances are just you doing your regular shtick, but with fewer laughs. You're not fooling anyone into thinking you're some kind of serious actor." The words stung, not because they were true, but because of how casually cruel they sounded. The entire panel fell silent. Even the studio crew, normally indifferent to on-air tension, were exchanging wary glances. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a confrontation. Sandler's publicist, sitting off camera, shifted in her seat, her face tightening with concern. She half rose as if to signal the producers, but Sandler subtly lifted his hand, a small, calm gesture that told her not to intervene. He wanted to handle this himself. "You know what, Joy?" he said finally. His voice still calm but laced with an unmistakable edge. The easy warmth that usually colored his tone was gone now, replaced by something colder, sharper. The sound of a man who'd had enough. I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've made movies that have brought laughter and happiness to millions of people all over the world. I've worked with some of the best actors, writers, and directors Hollywood has to offer. I've taken risks, I've failed, I've succeeded, and I've kept going, because that's what artists do. He leaned slightly forward, his eyes fixed on hers. If you want to sit here and tear me down for your own reasons, whatever they are, that's your choice. But I'm not going to sit here and let you rewrite my story just to score a few cheap shots on live television. A hush fell over the studio. Even Joy seemed momentarily caught off guard by the quiet strength in his words. There was no anger, no shouting, just conviction, steady and immovable. Whoopi folded her arms, giving Sandler a small, approving nod. Sarah Haynes shifted the conversation slightly, attempting to diffuse the moment, but Joy looked rattled. Her trademark smirk had vanished. For perhaps the first time in years, she looked genuinely uncertain. Sandler continued, his tone softening but still firm. You know I get it. Not everyone likes my movies. That's okay. Comedy is subjective. But when you come at me like this, trying to humiliate me, trying to make my career sound like some kind of joke, that doesn't say anything about me. Joy, that says something about you. The audience broke into spontaneous applause. It wasn't loud at first, but it grew quickly, filling the room with the sound of support. Not just for Sandler, but for anyone who'd ever been mocked for following their passion. Joy tried to interject, but her voice faltered. The control she usually held over her guests had slipped completely through her fingers. The cameras caught every flicker of emotion across her face. Surprise, frustration, even a hint of shame. Sandler leaned back in his chair, composure fully restored, and said with a small smile, "Now, if we can get back to talking about the movie, I think your viewers would actually enjoy hearing about something positive for a change." That line sealed it. The audience erupted again, some even cheering. Joy forced a tight smile, clearly eager to move on, while Whoopi smoothly took over the questioning, steering the show back to safer territory. But the damage was done. Not to Sandler's reputation, but to Joy's. By the time the cameras cut to commercial, social media was already buzzing. Clips of the exchange would go viral within hours, with hashtags like Sandler claps back and Joy Behar owned trending worldwide. And as the lights dimmed for the next segment, one thing was crystal clear. Adam Sandler had walked into The View expecting an interview, but he'd walked out having delivered one of the most poised, powerful, and unexpected television moments of his career. The studio lights glared brighter than usual, reflecting off the glass desk as the tension reached its breaking point. Adam Sandler, normally the picture of good-natured humility, was now standing tall, no longer just the comedian or the movie star, but a man defending everything he believed in. His voice, usually soft and friendly, carried through the air like a thunderclap. "You sit here in your comfortable chair," he began, his voice echoing through the silent studio, making six figures to tell people why they shouldn't enjoy things. But out there, in the real world, people are struggling. People are hurting. People need reasons to smile. The audience froze utterly still. You could feel the air shift. Sandler's words weren't scripted or rehearsed. They came from a raw, unfiltered place deep within him. He wasn't speaking as a celebrity. He was speaking as a human being, as a husband, a father, and an entertainer who genuinely cared about the impact of his work. And if my stupid, juvenile, lowbrow movies can give them that, even for a couple of hours, he continued, his voice cracking slightly with emotion, then I'm proud of every single one of them. The silence in the room was almost sacred. Even Joy Behar, who had started the exchange with her usual sharp wit, sat completely still. There was something in Sandler's eyes, a mix of hurt, strength, and deep sincerity, that disarmed her. For a few seconds, the only sounds were the faint hum of the cameras and the soft, uneasy breathing of the audience. Then tentatively, Joy found her voice again. It came out smaller than before, stripped of its usual bite. "I'm not saying people shouldn't enjoy entertainment, Adam," she said carefully. "I'm just saying that as artists, don't we have a responsibility to challenge ourselves, to create something with substance?" Sandler stared at her, then took a slow step forward. His voice was steady, but the fire in it was unmistakable. "Substance," he repeated, almost to himself. "You want substance? I'll tell you what substance is." He pointed toward the crowd, his tone rising with each word. Substance is a kid with cancer who laughs at one of my movies and forgets about his pain for 2 hours. Substance is a family sitting together in a theater, sharing joy instead of staring at their phones. Substance is bringing people together when the world seems determined to tear everyone apart. His words hit like a wave, powerful, emotional, impossible to ignore. The emotion behind them wasn't performative. It was real. You could hear the sincerity trembling just under the surface. Substance, he continued, is choosing to put positivity into the world instead of cynicism. It's lifting people up when life already does enough to drag them down. You know what lacks substance, Joy? He paused, letting the silence hang heavy between them. His voice dropped lower, quieter, but it carried more weight than ever. This interview, this attack, this need to tear down someone who's never done anything to hurt you, that's what lacks substance. The room was so quiet that even the faint whir of the studio cameras sounded loud. Somewhere in the audience, someone sniffled, a small involuntary sound that cut through the stillness. The camera panned across faces filled with awe, discomfort, and admiration all at once. Even the production crew had stopped moving, transfixed by what they were witnessing. For a long moment, no one spoke. Joy's usual composure was gone, replaced by something more human, uncertainty, even guilt. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice wavered. "Look at him," she said finally, attempting to salvage some control. "I think we just got off on the wrong foot here." "Wrong foot?" Sandler interrupted, incredulous. "Joy, you didn't get off on the wrong foot. You came in here with both barrels loaded. You wanted to take me down, and for what? For making people laugh? For doing my job?" His tone was not angry anymore, and it was disappointed. "And you know what?" he said, shaking his head slowly. "You failed. Because at the end of the day, I know who I am. I know what I've contributed. And I know that when I go home tonight, I'll sleep peacefully knowing that somewhere out there, people are laughing because of something I created." He looked directly into the main camera now, addressing not Joy, not the host, but the millions watching from home. His expression softened and his voice dropped to a heartfelt sincerity that made the moment unforgettable. "To everyone watching," he said, "who's ever been told that their joy doesn't matter? Who's ever been made to feel ashamed for finding happiness in simple things? Don't let anyone take that away from you. Life is hard enough without people trying to steal the few things that make you smile." There was a long, emotional pause. Many in the audience were visibly moved, some wiping their eyes, others simply staring in stunned silence. Then Sandler turned back toward Joy, his tone calm but firm. "And Joy," he said quietly, "I hope someday you find whatever it is you're looking for. Because this," he gestured lightly around the studio, "this isn't it. Hurting people, isn't it?" He didn't wait for a response. He took a step back, adjusted his jacket, and began walking toward the edge of the set. The camera tracked him as he exited the stage, his head held high, his face a mix of exhaustion and quiet pride. Joy sat frozen at the table, staring down at her notes, realizing too late that she had pushed the wrong person too far. The studio audience erupted into applause, not loud or celebratory, but sustained and emotional, like an acknowledgement of truth. Whoopi Goldberg watched him go, a faint, approving smile on her face, while Sarah Haynes gently patted Joy's arm in a silent gesture that said, "Enough." The director hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to cut to commercial, but finally gave the signal. The red light above the camera turned off and the spell was broken. As the show went to break, Joy remained seated, her expression distant. For the first time in her long career, she looked unsure of herself. The camera caught one final close-up before fading to black, a glimpse of something that looked almost like regret. Within hours, the clip would spread across the internet. It would dominate headlines, trend on social media, and spark conversations about humility, respect, and the difference between criticism and cruelty. Pundits and fans alike would analyze every second of the exchange. Some called it the day Joy Behar met her match. Others called it Adam Sandler's greatest unscripted performance. But for most viewers, it was something deeper. A reminder that behind every public figure, every entertainer, every celebrity, there is still a human being with feelings, history, and heart. It was a moment that stripped away pretense and showed the raw truth. That kindness, sincerity, and laughter are not weaknesses. They are strengths. And sometimes, when pushed too far, Even the gentlest souls will stand up and fight for what truly matters. So what did you think of that explosive confrontation? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when someone tried to tear you down? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories like this one. The words hung heavy in the air like an echo that refused to fade. Adam Sandler stood tall, his voice trembling not with fear but with emotion that came from deep within. "And if my stupid juvenile lowbrow movies can give them that," he said, his tone steady but weighted with sincerity, "then I'm proud of every single one of them." The audience could feel the truth in his voice. This wasn't sarcasm. This wasn't a defensive outburst. It was a declaration, a raw, unfiltered confession of a man who had spent his life bringing laughter to others, even when it meant being misunderstood. The studio that moments ago buzzed with awkward tension was now silent, reverent almost, as if everyone present knew they were witnessing something real. The emotion in Sandler's voice wasn't the crafted sentiment of a performance. This wasn't Hollywood polish or PR spin. This was Adam Sandler stripped of pretense, not the comedian, not the movie star, but the man behind the laughter. You could see it in his eyes, glistening with restrained tears, and in the way his jaw clenched as he tried to keep his composure. He wasn't just defending his career. He was defending his purpose, the thing that gave his life meaning. For 3 decades, Sandler had been the guy who made people laugh through heartbreak, struggle, and dark times. He knew that his films weren't always critically acclaimed, that they were often mocked by reviewers who couldn't see past the surface. But to him, they weren't just jokes and slapstick. They were medicine, imperfect, silly, joyful medicine for a world that so desperately needed it. Joy Behar, who had been sharp and confrontational just minutes earlier, finally found her voice again. But when she spoke, it came out softer, smaller, almost hesitant. "I'm not saying people shouldn't enjoy entertainment, Adam," she said, her tone noticeably gentler now. "I'm just saying that as artists, don't we have a responsibility to challenge ourselves? To create something with substance?" Her words were measured, but even she seemed to realize how hollow they sounded in the wake of his impassioned defense. Sandler turned toward her, his eyes blazing with intensity. Not anger, but conviction. He took a few deliberate steps closer to the desk, closing the physical and emotional distance between them. "Substance?" he repeated, his voice low, deliberate, almost like he was tasting the word. "You want substance?" He paused for a moment, letting the silence stretch, his gaze fixed on her. Then his tone rose, not in rage but in strength, the kind that comes from truth. "Let me tell you about substance, Joy." The audience leaned forward. Every camera operator instinctively zoomed in. "Substance," he said, pointing slightly toward the crowd, "is a kid with cancer who laughs at one of my movies and forgets about his pain for 2 hours. Substance is a family sitting together in a theater, actually talking and laughing together instead of staring at their phones in silence. Substance," he continued, his voice growing more passionate, "is when someone who's lost everything watches one of my dumb comedies and, just for a moment, remembers what it feels like to smile again." He paused, his chest rising and falling as he steadied himself. The audience sat frozen, the kind of silence that happens when words hit deeper than expected. "Substance," he said again, this time softer, "is choosing to put positivity into the world instead of cynicism. It's choosing kindness when the world tells you to be bitter. It's making people laugh when laughter is the only thing that still feels human." You could see his hands trembling slightly, not from nerves, but from emotion. He was holding nothing back. "I've spent my life making movies that critics love to tear apart," Sandler continued. "But those same movies, the ones they call silly or pointless, have made millions of people happy. Parents tell me that their kids grew up watching them. Veterans tell me that my films helped them get through hard nights. Couples tell me that they bonded over laughter when they didn't think they could find joy anymore. That," he said, his voice rising again, "is substance." Joy opened her mouth slightly as if to respond, but no words came out. The audience's eyes were on Sandler. The everyman comedian suddenly transformed into something larger than life. He took a slow breath, collecting himself. "You know, Joy," he said more calmly now, "I get it. You sit here every day and talk to people from all walks of life. You have opinions. You challenge people. That's your job. But sometimes, maybe, just maybe, it's worth remembering that not everything has to be dissected or judged. Some things just are." Some things exist simply to make people's days a little better. The sincerity in his voice cut through the air like a beam of light. And I'm okay with that, he added. I'm okay with not being the serious actor or the deep artist, because I've seen what laughter does to people. I've seen how it heals. I've seen how it connects us when nothing else can. And if my work brings even one person a little peace, then I've done something right with my life. As he finished, his tone softened, the fire giving way to warmth. So yeah, he said, almost smiling. If that's lowbrow, then I guess I'm proudly lowbrow. Because I'd rather make people laugh than make them miserable pretending to be something I'm not. The studio erupted, not with laughter or forced applause, but with a deep, collective reaction that felt almost emotional. Some clapped softly. Others simply nodded, absorbing the power of what they just witnessed. Even Joy seemed visibly affected, her usual confidence replaced with reflection. She lowered her gaze, tapping her pen nervously on the desk. For the first time, she looked less like a talk show host and more like someone realizing she might have crossed a line. Adam Sandler took another breath, exhaled slowly, and looked around the studio. His expression softened into something humble again, the same everyman charm that had made the world fall in love with him decades ago. He glanced toward the camera, as though speaking not to Joy anymore but to everyone watching at home. Look, he said gently. The world's tough enough already. We all need something that makes us feel okay, even for a few minutes. If my movies can do that, if they can give people a break from all the noise, the pain, the sadness, and then that's enough for me. His voice lingered, quiet but powerful. That's what I call substance. The crowd erupted into applause, real, spontaneous, and heartfelt. The kind that wasn't just for a movie star, but for a man who had just spoken the truth with every ounce of his soul.